conversation with myself or from my own mind, really. I hope that all of you will have some questions and it will be a conversation. It's about leadership, it's about women, and it's about the US-China relationship. So that breaks out quite easily into three areas, which I'm going to try to, I start to think about how those things relate. Leadership, to me, and I am a CEO, and I have been revenue responsible in a lot of businesses. I've spent most of my life revenue responsible. People ask me how I'm a CEO, and it's essentially because I'm a failed slacker. That is to say, I can't just go with the flow, dial it down, relax, and be mellow. Although I really do have admiration for people who are Taoist enough to just kind of chill. It's not me. I'm also, to a certain extent, a failed employee. I relate a lot to Ann Lee's comments. I have tried a lot of things that haven't worked out. I have hit a lot of glass ceilings. I have been in positions where I didn't fit into a company's culture, and so I moved on. That left me with no choice but to try to find out how to lead, try to find my passion, and I founded this China Business Network as my latest exercise in looking for a way to, let's just talk about leadership. Leadership starts with a conviction that you've got some kind of definition of what is valuable in the world. It continues with tenacity, the unwillingness to relinquish that vision. Continues with fearlessness, the willingness to confront everything that is scary and ugly and frustrating and depressing and hard. You just keep turning back to your conviction of what creates value in the world, and you do not let go of it. And I think finally, the implementation of leadership is through communication. And that means listening as well as speaking. It means hearing. Leadership right now is a very interesting commodity. I feel, I'm 46, I'm almost 47 years old. I would like to say something about how I feel the world is at a point where perhaps when I was younger and more naive and more, sheltered by whatever structures were around me, I didn't realize how dangerous the world could be. I feel right now that the world is at a place where no one has the right compass. No one's really got the answers. The two largest economies in the world, and we're going to talk about value creation here for a minute. China's got GDP growth, continues to manage its economy for GDP growth, continues to declare its success as a nation based on its GDP growth, and yet the environmental degradation is astonishing. You can't eat money. If the rivers are polluted and the soil is toxic, what good does the money do? China's incomes are rising, but so is inflation. And did you know that the average white-collar work week in China is 84 hours for men and 71 hours for women? I spent a lot of my career working 80-hour weeks. But there has to be a point at which society reaches a level where there is something called downtime, there is something called creativity, there is something called, dare I say it, family. And we're getting to a point where I'm talking about not just leadership, I'm moving into what it is to be a woman. Here in the United States, Wall Street's paying bonuses again. We're declared to be heading out of a recession, and yet the unemployment rate is continuing to be above 10%. The armed forces in the United States, traditionally the last refuge for male employment, because who after all wants to show up and possibly be blown up? Guess what? They're turning people away. The U.S. Armed Forces have a pick of experienced engineers, teachers, lawyers. It's very hard to get a job in the Army these days in the U.S. It's very hard to get a job anywhere in the U.S. And yet Wall Street is paying bonuses. So here we have two economies. One, a socialist market economy, single-party rule, with great GDP growth. Another, a capitalist democracy with a financial sector that is, yippee, performing again. And somehow, the real value creation in both these economies, I wonder where it's going. I wonder what our indices of the Dow Jones and of GDP growth are leading us. I wonder what is happening in the world when the Gini coefficient, which is the measurement of the disparity between society's wealthiest and its least wealthy, in this socialist market, single-party economy, and in this capitalist democracy, are both over 4%. In fact, they're both pretty close to 4.5%, and 4% is considered predictive of social unrest and instability. So, precisely how are we leading? I think that one of my favorite quotes of Confucius is, "To lead truly is to serve." Jamna is back here somewhere. I was doing some interpretation work for a visiting delegation from the city of Hezi in Shandong yesterday. It's the second largest city in Shandong. And because I was the interpreter, I didn't get a beautiful painting of peonies. Hezi is famous for its peonies. It's, beautiful. Everybody else got peonies. I got the calligraphy. And so they held up the calligraphy and they said, "You'll appreciate this because you know Chinese." And so then the Deputy Mayor of Economic Development of Philadelphia said, "Well, have them tell us what it says." And the 6 members of the delegation and I all stared at it and we said, "We can't actually read it." It's a saying of Confucius, though. And I said, "Well, let's just go with that then." And when I'm talking about us living in a world where nobody really has the answers, we know that this is some saying of Confucius. None of us can actually read it, except for the calligrapher who wrote it. But I'm going to pretend that it says, "To lead truly is to serve." And I'm going to hang it up in my study, and if anybody asks me, I'm just going to say that's what it says. Because sometimes if you have a doctrine that you can believe in, it's as good a start as any to leadership. Thank you, Jamna and Aiden, for holding up the calligraphy that no one can understand. What does it mean to be a woman if I'm questioning the leadership of the world right now? What does this world need? Clearly, we're no longer in a single pole world. The U.S. is not forever the sole superpower. And I have this kind of, if I'm famous for anything, it's a column in Forbes about how the United States is kind of like Snow White's stepmother. And she asks the mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the most powerful country of all?" And the mirror says, "Fair queen, dear lady, it is not you, but China, which is the fairest country of all." And that the U.S., much like Snow White's stepmother, is falling into this kind of rage where we decide the thing to do is have her killed. So let me just say, I do feel that the appropriate response to learning that Snow White is in fact as beautiful as the queen. And you would think the queen, given that she is the queen, would be a little more generous of heart and kind of invite beautiful Snow White, who seems to be able to take care of herself quite well. Maybe they should ally with each other a bit. I think, I'm going back to Ann Lee's comments, maybe women need to mentor each other a little. Just think what the Queen and Snow White could do together. In any case, we're not in a unipolar world. What would be the point of having a world with only one direction and only one value system and only one world? It would eventually just lead to stagnation. We don't want to be stagnant. The reason why women are literate, the reason why women are educated, the reason why women enter the workforce is because we can bring something that men can't. Otherwise they wouldn't hire us, believe me. Just like Andy was saying about the boards, board directors are all people that already know each other. We're there because as women we do some things a little bit differently. We're able to see things differently. So what exactly am I referring to? Conviction of value. What has value in women's lives? I think women tend to be stewards. We tend to be the tenders of the hearth, the keepers of the family, those who care for the overall fabric that sustains us all. I like to, make the analogy: we cook, we clean, we do laundry, we keep the home. And for many years, women were never paid for that. Actually, we're still not. we have children. Now, if you go into a hospital or a place where a child is being born, everything that's happening in that room generates economic value. The person running the sonogram, the doctor who writes an invoice for delivering baby, if there's an anesthesiologist, everybody's getting paid except for the woman who's having the baby. That somehow has zero economic value. Why is that? Why is it that keeping a field free from pollution has absolutely no economic value, but having a spill in it and then hiring a bunch of people to clean it up does? Can anybody tell me why value is not aligned with conservation or protection? And I think that what women do traditionally in that conviction of value, we tend to place more value on the continuity of the fabric of things and the integrity of the invisible network that keeps us all happy and together. Sorry if I'm offending anybody. It's just, I have to speak my truth because I'm a failed employee and nobody's going to fire me. Tenacity, women know a lot about tenacity. We raise kids, we don't give up on them even when everybody else does, or even when we should, maybe, perhaps. Communication, as women, I mean, the job of communication is to listen. It is to challenge and to protect equally. So we must have a way that is specific to women of being able to challenge and to protect the people that are working with us in ways that men don't necessarily do it. Otherwise, they never end up in our offices. The employees would not be in our offices. They would not be in the offices of a woman manager or a woman colleague or a woman leader if they felt they were being protected and challenged and nurtured, listened to in a male colleague's office. So men and women alike tend to come into my office and ask me, what do you think? Help me with this. I would like to say that about the US-China relationship. Both the US and China, in my view, about 10 or 15 years ago, were probably the two best countries in the world for a woman of ambition. Both countries have, despite the lingering presence of the glass ceiling, the economic opportunity, the economic overall climate are quite suitable for white collar, for creative, for design, for managerial. The educational opportunities for women in both countries are exceedingly good. I think that there's always room for some sort of improvement, but I would like to point out again that the work week for men in China is 84 hours, and the work week for women is only 71. So there's got to be some advantage to being a woman in the workplace, even in China. I think there's also a lot of disadvantages to being a woman in the workplace in China, and I feel quite, I see the younger women in China having more difficulty than women of my generation did. There has been some sliding back of the sense that women were equal into, with the rise of the nouveau riche, the newly wealthy and the powerful enterprise managers who tend to be male. There is a sense that women have a certain value that is not necessarily always related to their brains, if I may say so. And I feel bad for young Chinese women having to confront that, and another reason why we should all stick together. China, Wu Yi has been named by Forbes magazine as the most powerful woman in the world twice. The Chinese have the concept of the New Qiangren. People ask me what it is like to be a woman in business in China. Is it like Japan? Is it like Korea? And I say, oh no. The Chinese love a powerful woman. Of the 20 wealthiest self-made women in the world, 11 of them are Chinese. 21% of China's parliamentarians are women, and that's higher than the US. 1/3 of China's millionaires are women. There are certainly ways of accessing the power structure in China that are not available in any place in the world. Let's just put it this way. Female literacy to me is a kind of a proxy for civilization. If I made a map of the world and I put a little marker on every country where I'd be afraid to wake up and find myself forced to survive, everything that I would call a hellhole probably has low female literacy. Try it. Countries that empower women to read and write and participate are civilized. Anyone, no one's going to fire me for saying that. But you look at the countries that have 30%, 40%, 15% female literacy. They're places that are racked by poverty and instability and violence. You don't want to go there. You want to teach women to have power. So I feel, being a woman in leadership in the US-China relationship is actually a pretty decent gig right now, once you get over the idea that nobody's got the answers. I would like to challenge all of us in the room who are engaged in leadership in our own ways. And the question, why aren't there more women in leadership? I think there's more women and men in leadership. They're just not being recognized because they're not racking up billions of dollars of wealth for something that's being measured. You can be a leader by serving, by making life better for the people whose lives you touch. And that is what I would call on you to do today. And if you can do that by being a derivatives trader, God bless you, do it. Connect with your passion. But if you can do it by being a kindergarten teacher, do that too. And if you can do it by being a CEO of an online trade publication for everyone who's a China cross-border professional, good luck. Just keep creating value, stay tenacious, stay fearless, and always, always communicate with the idea of service in mind.